Hi, my name is Sonya Dreizler. I am a subject matter expert in ESG, SRI, and sustainable investing. And today I'm talking with Gabe Rissman of Your Stake. We're working together on a project about ESG data.
Thank you, Sonya. I'm Gabe. I'm the co-founder and president of Your Stake, and really excited to be talking with you today.
So one of the interesting questions that comes up in ESG data discussion sometimes is how different data and ratings providers treat companies that don't have a data point for some reason. And I wonder if you could speak to maybe why a company wouldn't have that data point and what the different approaches are to solving for that.
Sure. There are three primary approaches. The first approach is to estimate data, and that kind of makes sense in certain contexts. For example, in greenhouse gas emissions, if a company isn't disclosing its emissions, you can still look at its operations and its products and give an estimate based on industry peers and knowing what its business model is. That doesn't work so well for a lot of other metrics, like worker policies or product safety or whatever it may be, especially in different geographies. There's another approach, which is to gather all the data that exists and is possible to collect to be able to fill in and bump up coverage numbers. A lot of times what that means is just looking to see what all the policies that a company has, but that doesn't often necessarily correlate with ESG. It correlates with people that have the resources to create a lot of policies. And sometimes it also does correlate with ESG and is a valid approach as well. The approach that Your Stake takes, and some others are taking as well, is to take the data that exists and is impactful and material and relevant and use that. So one example would be if you're looking at fossil fuel loans and you've got Bank of America, well, they have data, they're giving out loans to fossil fuel companies. And then there's Nike as well. And Nike has no data. Obviously, Nike isn't lending to fossil fuel companies. Should they get a 0? Should they get a perfect score because they're not lending to fossil fuel companies? Well, we don't do either of those. We take the data and the companies that it's relevant to and stay kind of within the bounds of what the data is meant for and collected for. So you're only comparing banks to banks. You can compare Nike's industrial emissions to other companies' industrial emissions or whatever it may be. And where the challenge comes sometimes is, well, now you don't just want a fossil fuel financing score, you want a climate change score. And if you have a climate change score and you want to take banks that are lending to fossil fuel companies and take Nike's factory emissions, where a lot of these banks don't have the same sort of factory emissions, how do you mash those data points together and come up with a climate number? That is what can be really challenging and lead to some challenges with missing data. At Your Stake, we sometimes call ourselves the no-score ESG data providers because we're not trying to do that and mash together these different data points that don't always fit with each other. We're letting advisors and individuals look at data points individually and select the ones that matter and then see how they compare within the scope of what's actually relevant.